Nobody's asked you this today. Are you okay? Are you really fine? I mean, it's okay to feel a little off sometimes. It's all right that you don't want to smile. You don't need to explain bad moments away. We all get them and get through them. Don't forget that even the darkest clouds have the sun shining on the other side. So give it time, and you will be fine. Eventually, most likely, you'll feel the corners of your mouth naturally rise, and you'll know that it's real because everybody will be able to see it in your eyes. But until then, I was just calling to check on you because I was thinking of you, and I wanted to make sure that you're doing okay. Let me know if you're not. I'm always here if you need to talk.
My name is Pia Tuominen. I'm a former psychiatric patient. In my past, I've been told by psychiatrists that I would have to stay on medication for the rest of my life because I had had problems with my mood for so long. Fortunately, I learned that the disease model of mental health issues isn't the only way to understand and look at these problems. When I think about my past challenges, it makes perfect sense to me that I wasn't feeling good. I had low self-esteem and low self-worth, and I ended up in a relationship with a man who had a different set of values and a different worldview than I did. It caused a lot of conflicts in my life to be in a relationship with this man who didn't share my values. Looking back at that time of my life, I understand that the feelings of depression and other symptoms I experienced were not symptoms of a mental disorder. They were signs that I wasn't living in alignment with my values and that there is something that needed to be healed. I would say I needed to learn self-acceptance, self-love, self-compassion, and to trust my inner guidance. Listening to my inner wisdom hasn't always been easy, but after learning to trust it, I've left behind the diagnostic labels and other opinions of psychiatrists. For years I had taken prescribed psychiatric medications without feeling any better. When I learned about the other ways to understand mental health problems and the challenges we face as humans, I went on to withdraw from all the medications. The withdrawal process ended in December 2016. After that, I haven't had a single dose of any psychiatric medication. I studied to become a solution-focused brief therapist. I found my creativity, my playfulness and joyfulness. I'm grateful for having heard about other ways to look at mental health issues and for having the courage to follow this different path, even though I was told that my situation was so bad that even going to therapy wouldn't help me.
Depression isn't always obvious. As a matter of fact, in a lot of cases, it isn't obvious at all. I think that we're starting to finally accept and understand that mental health and physical health are equally important. What's next is that we understand that just the way that we would seek care for physical illness or injury, we should seek support and care for our mental health as well. Put it this way. If you broke your arm and the bone was sticking out and it was bleeding everywhere, you'd most likely go to the hospital and get help and support. You wouldn't just sit in silence and tolerate it, I hope. If you've ever suffered from depression, then you know how real it can get in here. It's comparable to the bone. So if you're suffering, please don't do it in silence. Seek professional help. It's available and you deserve it.
Depression creeps upon you quietly. At the very beginning, you struggle with the little things, but you usually choose to ignore them. It's like a headache. You'll tell yourself it's temporary and it'll pass. It's just another bad day. But it's not. You're stuck in this state of mind. You get used to putting on a social mask and you continue to live among other people because that's what you have to do. That's what others do. However, the problem does not go away. You struggle to put on a play every day and it starts to cost you more and more. that is where you fall even deeper, and that's when you slowly start to back away from friends and family, sometimes completely shutting them out. All satisfaction is gone. The little things that used to bring you joy are now worthless. Even the simplest tasks become painful, and that is why you lack motivation now. Why would you keep on trying if nothing makes you happy anyway? All of this makes you feel even worse, and you get caught up in a vicious circle. Suddenly you find yourself living in slow motion. Days become indistinguishable, just white noise, just heaviness filling your mind and spilling over your body. You feel as though you will never be happy again. You continue to back away and destroy relationships. You're ashamed for everything you've done and everything you haven't. There is a part of you that wants to make things right. A sudden positive upsurge makes you want to go out and meet people, but it's all very short-lived because you know it won't work anyway. Things that make your friends excited leave you indifferent, and you become aware of the huge gap that lies between you and other. Failure is not an option, so in the end you choose to be alone in your comfort zone where no one asks any questions. The low self-esteem and the lack of purpose become unbearable.
Her next chapter, a virtual community of women for women who are like-minded that are on a journey, transitioning, learning, being inspired, and celebrated. A virtual community where your voice is being heard, where you can follow content that has substance and importance to your life. A virtual community where you will be excited to meet women from all over the world, all ages, bridging a gap from our daughters, our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our coworkers.
Our systems are always trying to fix the imbalance. They're always striving for what is known as homeostasis or a state of balance. And it's not just physical balance, it's about mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical balance. And that in treatment, in holistic medicine, all we needed to do was figure out what our body needed to attain this state of balance and what needed to be removed. What were the toxic negative influences that I needed to remove? The two big questions I ask with every patient that I work with is what is it that their system needs to enhance their overall functioning? And what is it that I need to remove again to enhance their overall functioning? And the answer to this was very, very simple. What is it that our system needs is good food, nutrition, movement or exercise, clean air, clean water, clean environments, connection and love, loving relationships and friendships, and then meaning and purpose in life. Literally, it's a handful of things that our body needs. And what it does not need is an overgrowth of bad bacteria, virus, and funguses. All of the environmental toxins that we are routinely exposed to since World War II. And these are the two, and then the stress that we are constantly exposed to. So these are the main three things that need to be removed. And even if I were to kind of simplify all of these things into maybe 2 or 3 root causes that I've repeatedly seen in my patients, number one, it's the bad diet. Number two, it's trauma, especially early life trauma, or even the everyday stress that we are exposed to, and toxins. And folks, whoever's listening to this or watching this program, know that you are capable of healing from any chronic physical and mental health conditions, like I've been able to.
So, what are we looking for in order to identify whether we ourselves are having a hard time with this or somebody that we care about might be going through a hard time with this? There are some things that you can be looking for or tuning into in yourself to determine whether you might be having some kind of challenge with high functioning depression. So, one of the first things to look for is this general sense of sadness. Going back to this image you may have of this depressed person, you could be thinking of someone crying all day, just having a hard time with life, slumped over, catatonic even, maybe not moving very much. You're not going to really see this with someone with high functioning depression, but rather, like I said, a subtle and general sense of sadness most of the time, almost every day, if not every day. And it's a little bit inexplicable. Sometimes you can't really tell where this feeling is coming from or pinpoint any particular trigger that hurt your feelings or anything like that. You might also notice diminished energy. So, like I said, not necessarily not being able to get out of bed, but just diminished. You feel fatigued a lot of the time, where maybe before you didn't experience it that way. Other things to be looking for is being really self critical, which leads to perfectionism, which can also contribute to blowing things out of proportion, finding really small things in your life to turn into huge problems.
Riley, I know that mental health, mental wellness is really big right now, and I'm so very grateful for that. And I think that our military members who are transitioning out, this is a really big topic for them. And so, what was it like for you transitioning out? You know, as far as mental wellness, mental health, and what are some maybe strategies that you use or you would suggest to the audience, the people listening?
Yeah, so I think transitioning is tough. I think it's tough for everybody. And I will say, you have a special place in my heart for people transitioning. You've given your life, right? So I did 20 years. You've given your life to that service, to that commitment, and to that mission. And so I think when you go to transition, it's really hard. I feel like there's a sense of loss. There's a sense of, there's a big change in your life. If you have a family, it's a change in your family's life. And I think that you can feel a sense of people don't understand this. Like you think that it's a time to celebrate and it's all parties, but in reality, like you could be losing your friends. Um, you're losing the habits, the camaraderie, and that sense of purpose. And I think that's really difficult. And I know when I left, and I know when I retired, there was that sense of, there's a little bit of sense of excitement, and there's a little bit of sense of, you completed it. But there's also that sense of, should I have stayed in? Should I have just kept going, just because it's like a safe place, it's a safe community, it's something that but it's also because you served this mission your whole life. And so what I would say, if you're transitioning and you're going through this it's really hard time, there's so much emotion behind this, is really try to find that sense of purpose, right? So I'd say some of the strategies that I would recommend, right, besides reaching out to somebody on our platform, but to start that healing process yourself, I would say, I would really just say trying to find a purpose.
It is, I've got to hone in on this point. It's vital that you somehow reconnect or reinvent or recreate and find a purpose. It is vital. It's not a nice to have. It's not a cutesy meme. It's not
No,
something
no,
that,
it's not.
just coaches do. Like, it's vital that you reconnect with or reinvent or recreate and find a purpose. And I would say the second thing is, don't give up until you find what works for you. I know so many people who are like, well, I tried therapy, it didn't work. Or I tried, Reiki, it didn't work. I tried EMDR, it didn't work. I tried CBT, right? Like they tried maybe one time, or they tried this one thing. And I'm telling you, sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's alignment with the person you're working with. And
Yes, I agree
sometimes
with
it's
that. I agree with
right.
that.
And sometimes it's alignment with the modality. But right now, in our society, our world, there are so many modalities, some of them ancient that are resurfacing, and some of them just being rediscovered. There's so many: CBT, EMDR, EFT, which I practice, Reiki, which I practice. Now even insurance is including some of these things I know people now who these new modalities are working for them like never before. So I just want to say, if this is you and you're like, I tried X or Y or Z, don't give up on yourself. You are worthy of healing, and healing is possible for you. Let me just say this again, because somebody's listening and you need to hear this. You're going to be unlocked today. You are worthy, and healing is possible for you. Don't give up and try a new modality. It could be the saving of your life. It could be the unlocking of your purpose. It could be the unlocking of I don't know, magic for you, life for you, new life for you.
When I was in elementary school, throughout elementary to middle school and also some of high school, I grew up with low hearing. And so I was made fun of all the time because I couldn't hear my peers, couldn't really hear the teacher. Sometimes I would ask people to repeat things a few times, and I could tell it was annoying people. And the thing is, I felt like it was an issue that I had for myself, and it really damaged my self-esteem. It caused problems where I didn't want to have friends like that, because I felt like they would be annoyed if I kept asking them, hey, can you repeat that, or I didn't hear you the first time. Because when I feel like when you have just these different things, these imperfections, sometimes people don't really know how it really affects the person that is dealing with it. And so I went on through elementary school, middle school, and even high school, just kind of keeping people at an arm's length, because I didn't want to deal with those problems of having someone make fun of me, because it's like, oh, well, you didn't hear what I just said, 5 times. And I, always had those conversations, and it made me feel bad about myself, because it was the questions I was asking myself, like, was, oh, what's wrong with me? Is there an issue? Like, I don't know how to fix it. And so eventually, when I got into just self care through a car accident, I was in my freshman year of high school when I got into that accident. And at the time, I played basketball, I was a student athlete. So there were a lot of pieces in play with that. Being on a team, you have to be able to hear other people, you have to be able to remember the plays and hear your teammates, hear your coach and everything. And that was something for me that was just very difficult to do. No matter how loud someone else was, it was like all the background noise, I can hear it. And so no one else really knew how that felt, because they didn't have that problem. And it was like the person that lives with it is the person that has to deal with it. And it's all about the perspective at the end of the day. And no one really tried to understand that perspective.
Just making sure you're up. 5 more minutes. Becca, let's go. Say cheese. That was so cheeky. Oh my god. Oh.
Amanda, stop. She's done nothing to you. Get out of here. Go. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I would say vulnerable seasons in our life, whether it's postpartum or menopause, right? We're more vulnerable, right? And I think it brings out what probably has been there to begin with. What I mean by that is if we all of a sudden start to feel insecure or start to feel like, who am I? Those were probably compounding issues that were never resolved or we didn't have language for, but it's all coming on. It's getting heightened because our emotions are heightened. And the way that is because imagine if you've never processed your life in a very deep way and you just focus on your work life, right? And you just about making money or corporate, but you've never paid attention to every part of you, which means the kind of friendship that you want, the woman that you are becoming, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional, your spiritual, your environment, your intimacy. And you wake up one day and you realize, I've only really focused on two parts of me. I've only focused on my wealth. I've only focused on my career. And you know what? I don't even know who I am anymore. So it's not that all of a sudden they're lost. It's that they only were conditioned to see that only parts of them were valuable. Their career, maybe money, and so parts of themselves have been hurting for a long time. And nobody showed them. Nobody said, "Listen, your friendship is equally as important as your ability to make money. Get that corporate job, and so is your family life, and so is your intimate life, so is your environment." And here's why: because that woman that was high-powered career, guess what's happening? All of a sudden, she's lost. She doesn't know who she is. Why? Because there's eventually, all that part of you that wasn't taken care of is so depleted that you can't even enjoy your achievements. You can't enjoy the things because this is why it's so important to train women to see with eyes of wholeness, that every part of their life needs to be accounted for in every season of their life. As
Even
a
if
mom,
they're going through a divorce, even if they're empty nesting.
it's like, for myself, it's like, how do you do it? You're building a multi-million-dollar business, you've written 2 books, and you're raising 8 kids. I'm like, I have to pay attention to every part of my life and every season of my life. It is my responsibility to fulfill my cup. I have to look at it and say, what's my environment look like? What's my home like? What's my marriage? And it's like our sacred responsibility because nobody's going to do it for us. And we have to start retraining women to say, not just your career, your environment is equally important because if you don't pay attention to that, it's going to catch up on you one day, which is what's happening that I'm seeing for these women. So that's number one. I think number two is that we are not growing. And let me explain that. We're going for it in their career, right? We're going and we're
That was me. That was
yeah,
me.
right. But if we're not growing, we're dying. And I see this all the time is that women who were once confident wake up one day and like, what happened? I was so confident. But confidence comes from self-competence. Meaning we are building our skill set and our mindset, but in every season of life.
What does peace of mind mean to you? For Maggie, it's knowing her family and their home are secure if anything happens to her. Whereas for Sandra, it's covering the cost of her kids' college education if she's not around to take care of it. We know we need life insurance. We know it protects families, but nobody likes to talk about it. Take care of your loved ones when you're not there to do it yourself. Call us today. That's 855-462-2542 and allow Aaliyah Quotes to start your 2023 with peace of mind.
What we eat has the power to impact how we feel, and it's natural to experience an ebb and flow in our emotions while we navigate life. But if we find that we're feeling low rather often, we can use the power of nutrition to boost our mood. I absolutely love geeking out about this stuff, so today I wanted to share some of the foods that I personally eat to help to support my brain health so that you can consider it as well. Our brain chemistry plays a vital role in the emotions that we feel. So if we want to feel good, we need to make sure that the right chemical compounds are available to create the right brain chemistry. Every moment of every day, our brain releases neurotransmitters, which are these little chemical messengers that allow our brain to communicate to the rest of our body. And some of these neurotransmitters influence how we feel. For example, dopamine is a neurotransmitter and a hormone that's connected with feelings of motivation and pleasurable reward. You might have heard of things like intimacy and shopping and smelling baked cookies in the oven triggering something called a dopamine rush. These are things that just make us feel really good. And then there's serotonin. This is also a neurotransmitter and hormone, and it's a mood regulator. It contributes to feelings of happiness. It makes us feel blissed out. Now, dopamine and serotonin are both made from amino acids, tyrosine and tryptophan, respectively, and our body can extract these amino acids from the proteins that we consume. But if we're not consuming enough protein, we might not have optimal levels of tyrosine and tryptophan. So our body might not be able to produce sufficient amounts of serotonin and dopamine, and this can lead to things like low mood. So to make sure that my brain has the tools that it requires to make the mood-boosting chemicals that it needs, I try to consistently prioritize foods that are rich in protein. Things like tofu and tempeh, beans, lentils, and nuts and seeds. Essentially, I just look at any meal I'm having and I ask myself, is there a good source of protein in here? If not, I try to either add it in or enjoy some kind of protein-rich food with my snack later on. Then there's B vitamins. These are things like vitamin B6, B12, and B9, which is more commonly known as folate. These are also involved in the formation of serotonin and dopamine, but these go one step further in helping to manage our mood and stress. Some brain chemicals can be helpful, like the ones that we discussed, but other ones can be harmful. There's an amino acid in our body that's called homocysteine, and when it's in excess amounts, it can actually cause damage to the inside of our arteries. High homocysteine levels have been linked with depression, dementia, heart disease, and stroke. When we have adequate levels of vitamin B6, B12, and folate, our body is better able to break down this excess homocysteine. So every day, or whenever I can, I try to include some kind of leafy green, some kind of seeds, or whole grains, because these are all great sources of B vitamins. And of particular interest to those following a plant-based lifestyle is B12, which I personally supplement, and I highly recommend it because it's an easy and reliable source, and B12 deficiencies are quite common.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a TMS treater, and this right here is our TMS treatment chair. This is for our transcranial magnetic stimulation. We're going to be delivering some magnetic pulses to the prefrontal cortex in order to treat treatment-resistant depression. So right up top is going to be the coil. This has two sensors here so that we know we're in the exact spot we need to be, and the screen also helps me with keeping connection as well. The chair is nice and comfortable for the patient. Everyone has their own custom settings so that the patient is comfortable and we have them set exactly where they need to be for treatment. So TMS stands for transcranial magnetic stimulation. Basically what that means is we, transcranial, the head, we will be delivering magnetic pulses into that prefrontal cortex. That is your mood center. So that is where we want to treat any sort of treatment-resistant depression. So if medications are not working, therapy is not working, this is a great way to get those magnetic pulses, stimulate that brain, and get things working the way they need to.
There are people who don't believe in taking prescription medications.
I ain't taking nobody's medication.
But they may be okay with taking something over the counter. Now, keep in mind that just because it's derived naturally does not mean that it's not a drug. Really, anything that has a chemical effect on your body is a drug. Nevertheless, here are 8 drugs that are known to be used for depression. Number 1, 5-HTP. 5-HTP is a precursor to serotonin. This means that it's part of the chemical pathway to make serotonin. So it's serotonin-like. There's been about 30 clinical trials showing some promising results with 5-HTP, but here's the downside. It has a really short half-life, which requires you to take it 3 to 4 times a day. So if you've never taken a medication before, it's hard enough to remember to take something once a day, much less 3 or 4 times a day. The common side effect is wicked nausea and maybe even vomiting. Number 2, inositol. Inositol is abundant in the brain, and chemically it's a sugar alcohol, and it's a building block for other chemicals in the body. We don't really know exactly how it helps depression, and there haven't been a lot of studies showing effectiveness. In the few studies that I've seen, though, it was used as an add-on treatment. So you would take it in addition to something that you were already taking for depression. The main side effects of it are gas and mania. Number 3, L-methylfolate. Folate is vitamin B9, which is an essential vitamin of the body. And usually when you hear the term or the word essential, it just means that your body doesn't make it. And the only way you can get it is through your diet or supplements. And while I'm talking about this, folate is the naturally occurring nutrient that you get from green leafy vegetables, egg yolks, etc. Folic acid is a synthetic dietary supplement. Neither folate nor folic acid are biologically active in the body. Your body has to do something to it first. So once your body metabolizes either the folate or folic acid, the active form is called L-methylfolate. So that's where L-methylfolate comes from. L-methylfolate is a building block for serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, and these are all chemicals involved in mood. Studies have shown that people with low folate levels in the body tend to have a more severe depression, and they don't respond as well to antidepressants. So in practice, L-methylfolate is best used also as an add-on treatment to your antidepressant. I don't really think it will do much if you just use it alone. You can get a prescription for L-methylfolate from your doctor, and it's technically considered a biological food, but it still requires a prescription. And many insurances are now paying for it, but if yours doesn't, it can cost upwards of $100. So folic acid can be a good option and cheaper substitute for that. It's just that your body will have to process it into the L-methylfolate. Next is saffron stigna. Yes, this is the same yellow spice that's used to season rice. There's been a limited number of studies, but enough to show some positive results. The recommended dose is 15 milligrams twice a day, so here again you have the inconvenience of needing to take it twice. When a medication is recommended for more than once a day, usually it's not as effective, or maybe not even effective at all if you only take it once a day. So if you are going to take something like this where it's required multiple times a day, you really do need to take it multiple times a day to get the desired effect. Saffron is expensive, and you should definitely consult your doctor if you're considering taking it and you're on blood-thinning medications. Next is SAMe. SAMe stands for S-adenosylmethionine. You never want to need to say that. It enhances serotonin and norepinephrine. The studies show effectiveness in treating mild to moderate depression. However, many of the studies use small sample sizes and different forms of the drug, like the injectable form. Like, who's going to actually do that? So that's kind of the downside of the studies, but the recommended dose is 200 to 800 milligrams twice a day. As far as side effects, you can get some nausea with SAMe, and you should also avoid it if you have bipolar disorder, as it can worsen your mania. St. John's wort. St. John's wort is an herb, and it comes the closest to the antidepressants as far as effectiveness. It's been shown to help mild depression as a single agent. So all of these others that I've talked about, well, maybe not SAMe. SAMe has been used alone as well. The others, you kind of need to take it with something. St. John's wort is another one that has been studied as a standalone agent. It's not as good, though, for moderate to severe depression. The recommended dose is 300 milligrams 3 times a day. and it can interfere with the metabolism of other medications. So if you're taking another prescription medication, you need to tell your doctor that about the St. John's wort, so he or she can determine whether or not it's going to interfere with any of your other medications.
My name is Mia. I am a psychiatric nurse and a family and couple therapy trainer and trainer and supervisor in open dialogue. Well, open dialogue is referring to way how mental health services are organized and structured. And it is also referring to how people are met in their crises. And it originated from Western Lapland, Finland in early 80s, where a group of people started to think and they decided that they wanted to change the system of care in psychiatry. And from there, it has been a long story, of course, including training, doing the work, doing research, doing study and learning with clients and their families together, that what would be the good way and a more better way to design the services so that it would really respond to people's needs and not only following the kind of traditional diagnostical pathways in designing the care. But when I'm thinking about people living in their lives and having a crisis, and the first thing is that how do I talk about that and to whom should I talk about that? And when we think about the mental health system and care, of course, the one of and the very main element here is that people can call directly to the services, and when in crisis, the meeting is arranged in 24 hours. And it is not arranged so that we could have this diagnostical interview and kind of decide that what kind of diagnostical treatment path people should be having, but it is really engaging all of us to this dialogue and conversation. What has happened and how are we going to be, how should we continue from here together in this joint process? And of course, the very main idea and the element is also that there is a same team, 2 or 3 persons from the services who are working with the person and their family and network. So that is, of course, one of the very core elements in that. Really, the aim is that there is this one team who is starting from the very first meeting and working throughout the whole process. In the 80s, when they started to develop these ideas, they were really engaging the family therapeutic theories, and they started to study family therapy. But then in that process, they got to know more about the network therapy ideas coming from Sweden, and they learned from team from Norway and people from US, and they were really putting together all of those elements that they were learning in these processes together to create this system of care where they could really and honestly be need adaptive in responses. So it's really up to the person in the center of care to define that who would be those people who could be in the meeting. And when there's a crisis, that how could those relationships be there as a resource? So family is not, or the network is not invited to the meeting to gather information from them about the person. It's about creating this shared dialogue and possible new understanding or insights about what is happening here and how can we all be part of this. There is lots of research done about this approach. The first ones were done in the 90s, and then there was a 19-year follow-up study, and people were interviewed that what has been helping them to overcome or to recover from the crisis that was defined as psychotic crisis in the 90s. And people didn't mention the treatment itself, but what they were saying was their relationships, their networks, their families, that has been the resource for them in their recovery. Continuity of care, That's another thing that people are giving feedback all the time, that how good it is. And even if there would be some periods in the hospital, it's the same team who is following people to have meetings in the hospital as well.
Another thing, ironically, is self-doubt. So we mentioned that people that are experiencing this are really driven people a lot of the times, which makes it so hard to identify them out there in the wild. However, there's a lot of self-doubt, which comes with this other piece that I talked about previously of being really self-critical. So just being uncertain, unsure of who you are can really contribute to this too. So having a loose sense of self-awareness, those kinds of things can contribute to this also. And finally, if you find yourself having a really hard time relaxing, just unwinding after a full day of work, let's say you get home, you're really tired, and the last thing you can do is sit down and take some time to, have a breather. Instead, you're up and going and trying to clean everything and organize and make sure everything is okay. This could also be a sign that something is going on if you find that you are unable to relax.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christiana Wolf with Inside LA, and today I want to share a short self-compassion practice with you. So self-compassion has 3 different phases. The first one is mindfulness. Can we acknowledge that what is happening and it's painful? Second is what we call shared humanity. Can we remember that no matter what we're feeling, other people are feeling that too or have felt that before? Which is not to diminish what we're feeling, but to acknowledge that this is actually a common response to the situation that we're in. And then the third one is self-kindness. So let's practice this. So I'm inviting you to close your eyes if that feels okay. Can have your eyes open. If you want, you can put a hand on your chest. So sometimes that's actually a really nice gesture that your body will understand, a gesture of physical support. So just feeling what that feels like. And then recalling this difficult moment, or maybe you're right in it, just saying something to yourself like, this is a challenging moment. Or this is a hard moment right now. Or this is difficult to be with. This is a moment of pain. Or just ouch. So whatever feels right to you in this moment. Then the second step is the shared humanity. So you can find a phrase again that works for you. And I find that the more specific you are, the better it works. So you could say something like, this is what it feels like for somebody, filling in the specifics in this situation, filling in the specifics to feel this way. And just allowing yourself to feel that this is a normal response, a natural response to whatever you're experiencing right now. And if you like, in your mind's eye, like recalling or bringing to mind all the people who have ever felt this way before, or who are feeling exactly this way right now. You might not know anybody else who's feeling this way right now, but you can be assured many people have felt this way before and are feeling exactly the same way right now. And just staying with the breath, breathing that in, maybe picturing yourself in a circle with these people. knowing there's nothing wrong with you that you feel that way. And then the third step is self-kindness. So you could say to yourself, may I be kind to myself? May I keep my heart open? May I stay present and kind? May I not exclude myself from the circle of kindness? So just feeling into whatever words resonate with you, but just remembering kindness, and again, maybe feeling the hand on your chest. And with that, I'm sending you into your day. I hope this is helpful. And thank you for practicing with me.
Hi, I'm Dr. Constance Scharf. I am the founder of the Institute for Complementary and Indigenous Mental Health Research. And what I've focused on for the last almost 20 years is how do we use complementary, easy to access practices to improve mental health? And how do we include non-Western worldviews in our mental health practice? And so today I'd love to talk about well-being, not just diagnosable mental illness, but overall well-being, overall mental health, and what we can do, what tools we have to improve that. Now, you don't have to go to a therapist. It's great if you can, but on the day to day, there are things that we can do in a moment to improve our mental health. So let's talk about some tips that you can use right now to improve your mental well being. The first is music. I don't know if you realize this, but whenever you play music or sing, and it doesn't matter if you're good, that's a judgment that has no reality in your brain. If you play music and sing, your whole brain lights up. So we use this in addiction and trauma treatment facilities, singing as an exercise. But imagine if you've had a bad day, you're stuck in traffic, and you do your own carpool karaoke and sing along to a song on the radio that you like nobody's listening. You will feel better immediately. And this is because when you sing, not only does the entire brain light up, but also your brain starts producing certain neurochemicals, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine that are feel good chemicals, so you will feel better. This works for singing and humming as well. So if you need just a little boost to be like, oh, the day's not quite as bad as I thought it was, try singing. Another great exercise are breathing exercises. You know, what is the difference in a certain way between life and death? And in many ways, it's the breath. And so, if we can take time to breathe in all sorts of different ways, and you can find out about this on YouTube or lots of free resources are available, but how to breathe, whether it's breathing deeply, just a deep inhale, and an exhale, just like that, it calms us down if we're experiencing anxiety. And there are other breathing techniques, but breathing is what connects us to our internal resources. And so by engaging in breathing exercises, we can feel better. Mindfulness, of course, is terribly important because I work a lot with trauma, and what trauma does is it sticks us in the past. We're caught in the past in a situation that is not presently happening, but feels like it is or is imminent. And so mindfulness brings us into this moment. And one of the things that I do when working with trauma survivors is to try to focus on what's actually happening now. So, for example, I was very severely abused by my father when I was growing up. And even after he had died, I had this terrible fear that he was coming, or I could feel him breathing on my neck. And I wasn't in that time in the moment. So, what I can do to bring myself in the moment is to focus on whatever I'm doing right now. So, that might be taking off my shoes. Like right now, I don't have any shoes on, and feeling the floor beneath me, going outside and standing in the grass. I personally love eating a piece of fruit the deliciousness of a strawberry or a peach brings me, that taste brings me into this moment. So learning to listen to the birds that are outside, that helps break the thoughts that are keep going and going and going in our minds. And finally, this you do need some assistance with, but something called somatic experiencing. And that is to learn how to be present in our bodies and to feel safe in our bodies. This is tremendously important for people who are working through substance abuse, who are working through trauma, who are working through extreme anxiety. It doesn't feel safe to be in our bodies. And so by finding somatic experiencing practitioners of a wide variety of types, we can learn to be present right now where we are. The biggest problem with mental health that we see, anxiety and depression, anxiety is fear about what might come, and depression is a lot of feeling about the past. And so if we can get into this present moment where likely you are okay right now, I'm speaking to you, we're okay. And if we can experience that safety, it helps to bolster our overall well being. I think it's important to not only identify what we can do for ourselves, but how we can support other people. And I think the most important thing that I can say is to listen without doing. Especially women, we want to come in and fix the problem. Oh, you tell me what's wrong, and then I'm going to tell you how to fix it. I like to start with my friends by saying, do you want when they've asked for my help, do you want my support or my advice? They might say both, they might say neither. Either way, I really try to listen without response. Unless I'm asked, I don't relate my own story. I don't try to one up and say, oh, yeah, I get it. I had that happen to me too. I focus on my friend and I listen and I show up for them in the way that they asked me to. Another important thing, if you have permission, is ask, can I hold your back? And to sit next to a person and put your arm on their back if they are comfortable with it, so that they feel protected and defended. When people feel listened to, they are more able to share the big things.
I know it's all you've got to just be strong. And it's a fight just to keep it together. I know you think that you are too far gone, but hope is never lost. Hope is never lost. Hold on, don't let go. Hey, hold on, don't let go. Just stay one step closer.